Hello friends, Jim here with Science Talk, and I want to bring you a report about Siberia. Okay. Basically, the study that's just been published in the journal Environmental Research Letters and was produced by the Krasnoyarsk Federal Research Center in Siberia as well as the U.S. National Institute of Aerospace, basically saying that as the planet warms, Siberia could expect mass migration to that area. Right now, it's a very sparsely populated place. For good reason. Bloody cold there, right? I mean, it's colder there than in Alaska. What was I saw a report like minus 89 in some place in Siberia. It was just crazy. Uh, fuel line hoses were freezing in place. I mean, it's just absolutely. This is, I think like this past winter or the winter before, but it was like whoppingly cold. So now they're basically saying, well, as the area does warm, expect people to flock there. Well, what makes sense. Just like organisms are going further north as where they typically live is getting too hot, humans are going to be the same. Whether they're terrestrial organisms or organisms in the ocean, where they're living, it's too hot, they're going to move to a cooler place. Why are humans any different, right? By 2080, scientists report that thawing permafrost and warming summer and winter temperatures, yes, summer and winter both getting warmer, will mean that agriculture could thrive and support between 5 and 7 times the current population. Land to the south becoming far less able to feed and sustain the existing population as heat makes crops harder to grow, cities untenable, and mass migration northward is likely, scientists predict. But here's a problem. Arctic soils tend to be on the acidic side. Acidic soil is usually not conducive for growing the crops that humans depend on. So I didn't necessarily see that issue addressed in this paper. So that to me would be a caveat to raise. Now, these two studies, these two agencies, the Krasnoyarsk Federal Research Center and the U.S. National Institute of Aerospace, say the current problem of falling populations in Russia will be reversed as conditions in Siberia become much better for growing food and both summers and winters more pleasant to live in. We shall see. Again, I still raise the issue of the acidity of the soils. With 13 million square kilometers of land area, Asian Russia, which is east of the Urals, going towards the Pacific, accounts for 77% of Russian territory. Its population, however, accounts for just 27% of the country's people and is concentrated along the forest steppe in the south, which tends to have comfortable climate and fertile soil. Now, these findings have a little bit of irony to it, because at the close of the communist era, the Soviet government was not keen to take any action on climate change. It saw the warming of Siberia as a chance for the USSR to grow more wheat and challenge U.S. dominance of supplying that grain to the world. The scientists warn, however, that mass migrations will not be that simple. The thawing of the permafrost threatens what little infrastructure there is in the region. I did a video some time ago discussing this very issue, how the thawing permafrost, the warming Arctic, how it threatens the infrastructure, buildings and roads and so forth. Please check that out. Before a larger population could provide for itself, investments need to be made in new roads, railways, power supplies to support this. They say warming in the region already exceeds earlier estimates. This goes back to how, in general, scientists have underestimated their projection, but scientists do tend to be conservative. I mean, they don't want to be like, say too highball. They don't want to go highballing it, but then then they get accused of being hysterical or alarmist, what have you. Scientists, as a general tendency, tend to underestimate, and then we find out later, oops, and it's another case of oops. So depending on how much carbon dioxide humans keep dumping into the atmosphere, the scientists predict mid-winter temperatures over Asian Russia will increase between 3.4 degrees C and 9.1 degrees C by 2080. Increases in midsummer will be between 1.9 C and 5.7 C. Permafrost, which currently covers 65% of the region, will fall to 40% by 2080. And crucially, there will be increases in rainfall of between 60 millimeters and 140 millimeters, making the unfrozen area much more favorable for crops. What's the condition of the soil? Where's the seasonal thaw layer? How far down does the permafrost really begin? Because here, in Alaska, you get a lot of rain, but the water doesn't really percolate much into the ground, forming what we call thermal karst lakes or seasonal lakes. Now, with the thawing permafrost, yes, the ground is thawing, so the water can seep, infiltrate further down, but we don't know what it's going to do. We don't know what the pH of the soil is. What, is it humus? Is it just organic matter? If you rip up the permafrost layer, it's pretty much organic matter, like peat moss and that kind of stuff. When you finally hit where it's hard, that tends to be frozen silt, frozen clay. Well, that's not great stuff to grow crops in. So I think I'm going to call them out on it. I think they're being a little optimistic in their assessments or their predictions. I don't think it's going to be as what they think. Using something called ecological landscape potential, or ELP. No, this is not Emerson, Lake and Palmer, the incredible rock band from the 70s. But they use ecological landscape potential to gauge the potential for land to support human population. The scientists came to the conclusion that mass migration north was probable. We found the ELP would increase over most of Asia and Russia, which would lead to a 5 to 7-fold increase in the capacity of the territory to sustain and become attractive to human population, which would then lead to migrations from less sustainable land to Asian Russia during the century, they say. Call me skeptical on this one. Dr. Elena Parfenova from the Krasnoyarsk Center said in a future warmer climate, food security in terms of crop distribution and production capability is predicted to become more favorable to support settlements in what is currently an extremely cold Asian Russia. I hearken back to soil conditions and the acidity of soil that typically is found in permafrost areas. She said that obviously people would flock first to the already developed areas in the south, but most of the areas, Siberia and the Far East, have poorly developed infrastructure. True. The rapidity that these developments occur is dependent on investments in infrastructure and agriculture, which is dependent on decisions that will be made in the near future. So keep in mind what kind of carbon-based energy is going to be utilized to put in the infrastructure, building the roads, the machinery. They're going to burn carbon-based fuels, fossil fuels. You got to take that into account. Right now, to me, it seems like they're just looking at, oh yeah, we set up these conditions because we predict these kind of changes, and people will move there. Now, there's going to be mass migration of people. They're going to have to go somewhere as things just change. Areas get warmer, drier, wetter. People are going to move around. I come back to less and less land being available for more and more people. It's going to lead to crises, could lead to wars, but it will definitely at some point, things are going to burst, and it's going to be a massive decline, massive reduction in human population. It's basic ecological principles 101. Look at my carrying capacity video. So I think they're being overly optimistic. They're just saying, "Oh, we predict these changes, so people are going to move there." You got to look further at what the potentials are. You got to look at the type of soil, how you're going to, you know, what the people are going to do, and so forth. Okay, you can grow the food, but what are the people who move there? What are they going to do? I'm not an economist, but these are questions I have. So, is Siberia warming? Yeah. Is the permafrost thawing? Yeah. This is what keeps climate scientists up at night. The permafrost question. How much methane is in there? What rate is it being released at? And of course, what does the methane do to the planetary system? Those are the things that really should be examined. That's just my opinion. I think they're overly optimistic. That's my personal take on this. Let's say, call me skeptical. But there you have it. I wanted to share with you this report, and I'll just leave it at that. Thank you for your time. Hey folks, it's a reminder to please share my videos with others, and to also please tell others of my channel. Please subscribe, and don't forget to hit the bell so that you receive notifications when I upload new videos. I also hope that you will consider supporting the work that I do and supporting this channel by becoming a patron at patreon.com. Details in the description box below. Thank you for your support.